Listen, buddy, I'm not going to be around when the Armenians take over the world.
Who the hell wants you? Now let's go look it.
I'll bet I know more about Armenians than you do.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the podcast. I'm your host, Laban Maradi, and this is episode 12 of Lost in Hollywood. And today's special guest is Aren Bazerkanian from Havid Nagan. He is a founder of a independent luxury watch brand that you have just started. And from talking about it off air, you were saying that it's already has a lot of traction going on.
Yeah. And I hate to say the word, but super blessed, I guess, as the millennials would say. We're at about 95% allocated for this initial production run, and we're off to the races.
That's wonderful. I mean, I've been checking out the actual watch. The watch is here, and we will display it on somewhere here or on his frame, and we'll get a nice close up so everybody can see all the beautiful detail inside of it. And it's actually pretty light.
So grade 5 titanium. That's the cause of that. I wanted it to be that way specifically. I didn't want it to feel like you're chugging something along, and not to be kind of like the very snarky kind of collector, but
right.
Within the realm of quote unquote high horology, or when you're paying $8,000 for a watch, you want to get something that's up there in quality.
Absolutely.
So it was the obvious choice for me.
So your cultural background, just like mine, is Armenian.
Yes, sir.
I haven't seen that many Armenian watch brands or luxury watch brands. So what made you go into this realm of horology and technically this is mechanical engineering?
Yes. So the mechanical engineering part, I personally don't really have a background in.
Right.
I didn't go to formal school or education for that kind of thing. It was just how it all started, so to speak. Was I started like most anybody that is a collector, for example, or an enthusiast of these things. Learn about Rolex. That's where you go. There's a reason it's the number one most recognized brand across every industry. It's not just watches, Absolutely. Every industry. So started there, and I very vaguely paid attention. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm hooked already. So it started off very sort of shallow, the interest. Got into it more and more. I started noticing more wristwatches in general. So eventually it led me to understanding what Patek Philippe was. And, the granddaddy of it all,
Pretty much.
When you are, let's say you're going to graduate, or you got promoted in your job, or whatever it is, a lot of the higher end guys will go Patek Philippe because there's a good reason you go Patek Philippe.
CEO.
So started learning about that. I was like, okay, now I know what a $50,000 watch, $100,000 watch, like these things actually exist. But again, I was not really paying attention technically or design-wise. I just knew that it existed. Really where I started paying attention was when I came across, or I heard about, a company called Frank Mueller.
Oh, yeah.
And funny enough, actually, up until recently, if I'm not mistaken, an Armenian was at the helm of Frank Mueller.
Really?
Yeah. Vartan Siramkes, if I'm not mistaken, was his name. I don't know if he's still involved. I know that he was. So I heard about it on a song. I was going to the gym, and I heard Future rapping, and he kept saying Frank Mueller. It was like 2 or 3 times, Frank Mueller, Frank Mueller. I'm like, what the hell's a Frank Mueller, man? Like, I know Rolex, I know Patek Philippe. That must be a watch. Like, it sounds European,
Right.
So I Googled it. Once I got to the gym, I stopped the car, I Googled it, and I saw a Casablanca Havana. Which is an elongated tonneau case.
Yep.
Which I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, like these things exist? Like there is a non-round watch or something that didn't look like a Rolex. So that's when it really started like oh, I need to pay attention. Like something's drawing me here, like naturally. I'm not forcing anything here.
Right.
And it was down the rabbit hole at that point. I started learning about the independents, the very niche of the niche brands, and what makes a good watch a good watch. Again, from the outside. So that's really where it started. Yeah.
Wow. So he just name dropped every watch brand that anybody at this point. Patek Philippe is a household name.
It's becoming more and more. The reason I would say yes, in part to that statement, is that a lot of the hip hop guys are the Nautiluses, the bust downs, and the
Amigos.
Yes. So now people think Patek, they think Nautilus, like that's all they know.
Oh yeah.
Which in all reality, that's not what Patek should be known for.
No.
They are masters of complications and grand complications, repeater mechanisms, and
Grand chime.
Exactly. They have these amazing tourbillons that are so rare that you don't see, and the perpetual calendar chronographs. So that's really the meat of what makes Patek. So yes and no, I guess, is the.
I'm sure Mark Wahlberg has all those watches that you just mentioned.
I'm sure he has everything. That guy's crazy.
That guy has one of the greatest collections I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, it can go from a Casio all the way up to a Breguet.
Yep. And that's sort of a good way to analyze or think about the industry now, where it is, where you, like, for example, about Mark Wahlberg's collection, right? Nobody cared what anybody was collecting 5-10 years ago.
Not at all.
Maybe 5 years ago, sure, but 10-15 years ago, like nobody cared. Now everybody knows, oh yeah, Mark Wahlberg has that. Oh yeah, he has that. Oh yeah, he has that. Levon has that. Aren has that. And it's become this very shareable, I guess, hobby, and not just amongst people that are like-minded like you, for example, like just collectors. It's across the board. Like someone will see something cool, like your Cartier Pasha. If someone sees that, they're gonna be like, hey, what is that? It naturally, if you're into art or design or any sort of design related aspect
Anything that's
of something
in regards to be like creative.
Yes, for sure. So we can get into that in more detail. I'm happy to go into where we are as the state of the industry.
Right.
But it's a very good time to be in the industry. That's for sure.
Definitely, unless you bought a crazy amount of Rolexes at a crazy amount of in the gray market. The gray market's nuts, man. Back in the day, you would want a Rolex as just as an achievement watch for something, right? So that was the standard at that time. Now you can't even walk in. You walk in, it's dusty.
Right. They have exhibition only pieces
on. You want
on
to try it on? That's cool.
Right.
You can't buy it.
Right.
Yeah, or buy a lady's watch, and we'll put you on a list. Or
it's a problem. I don't know what the solution is, and I've thought about it a lot about what a brand can do to alleviate the tension of that. Because as a brand, you're like celebrating. If that happens to, let's say your watch is $10,000 and it's trading for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, yay! Great.
Right.
That's equity. Now people are more attracted in it. Let's say they weren't willing to take the step. Now, for one reason or another, and in my opinion, it's not the best reason, but it is a reason to say, yes, you know what, I'm going to buy this watch because I know the money's safe. Let's say, God forbid, if things turn around on me, they know the money's safe. So that aspect is... I don't know if it's a very good thing. It's a good thing, but it's kind of at the point where you're kind of leaning too far on one end of the scale and it's going to collapse. So that's kind of what's happening now is people are getting hurt.
Big time. And I mean, if you did not buy them, right now is a great time. Like you were saying, if you want to pick up that sub.
It's not a great time. It's a better time.
Better time.
A distinction should be made because, at the end of the day, do you want to pay $20,000 for a $10,000 watch? Sure, because it was trading $30,000 1 month ago.
Sounds like a Pepsi.
But right. That is what's happening. Yes, it's coming down, but it's still up there,
Oh, definitely, man. Again, you got to go buy like ladies' jewelry first. And then maybe
the ADs are infamous for this dynamic, and I always tell people stick to boutiques only. And again, a lot of the collectors that I know and I hang around with, so to speak, the Rolex is kind of like the oh yeah, sure, I have the Rolex. You know, these guys are buying $250,000, $300,000 watches. You know, it's
give a shit about
it's
that.
the Rolex is like the sure, why not? You know, Sunday jog I'm going on. You know, sure, I'll wear it.
$40,000
I don't want to wear my Grand Sonnery today. You know, it's that, and those guys. You have to also realize you can't just blame the brands or the ADs, because when Rolex calls or AP calls or Richard Mille or Patek calls and says, "Hey, Aaron, I have the Nautilus or I have the Submariner, I have the GM at retail,"
Yeah.
it's stupid to say no.
No, thanks.
You know, that honor, quote unquote, is sort of gone now at this point. Like, no, save it for the guy that can actually,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
part I get.
yeah,
That part.
and you can't avoid or ignore the value proposition at this point, or the secondary value proposition, I should say. They're all great watches. You know, the Rolex, like, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Rolex, but I also realize that Rolex is a great watch. You know, they make amazing watches. Yeah. It's sort of this too many people on the ship at one time.
I agree with you.
Ordeal.
That's why I don't have a Rolex in here.
Well, is that the reason why?
No, for real. Because I had, I thought about, in gray market wise, like pick one up, but I'm like, I always wanted a GMT Master, right?
Sure.
But it's going like $10,500 watch
Right,
for 20,000 ish,
something like that. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No.
It's crazy, and if you can muster it, sure, why
absolutely.
not? You know, if you're a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever you want to say,
Got money to blow, go for it.
why not? Yeah. I personally don't believe in it. I don't want to pay a penny over what the retail price is, and I'm not. Again, these watches, yes, we love them. We're passionate. Sometimes you can't sleep because you're thinking about it.
But it's not a necessary
But
item.
it's don't overpay. Don't get taken. Don't get soaked. You know, on the deal, and it'll come down. Like, eventually, you're gonna get. I have a group thread on Instagram. A number of entry guys, they're just starting to collect and understand what the world is, and they're talking about like Tudor and Zenith and Grand Seiko, great watches,
Absolutely.
and they're always knocking on Rolex, like, I can't get it, it's too expensive. And I honestly think, like, if you spend enough time at these ADs or these retailers, eventually someone's gonna say yes. It happened to me. It's happened to me and a number of my collecting friends.
But not for Rolex, though.
Not for me for Rolex, but for another friend of mine, it did happen. He literally walked in and ended up getting the Starbucks, the green bezel and the black dial, the sub. And it happened. He didn't have a profile. He didn't bribe them. He didn't do anything. It just ended up working out. So it's few and far between, yes, I'll admit, but it does happen. So
It's all good. Well, hopefully the market will go down, and then we can, most people would want to pick up, I don't know, a Datejust, a sub, whatever, at near retail price.
no, everybody wants them. That's how strong Rolex is. Like, even if you're not into collecting watches or watches in general, you'll say yes, yeah, absolutely.
Armenian special, man.
Yeah, it's very, very prominent in our community. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
it's like if you have a Rolex, that means you are someone, or your business is thriving, or you're very rich, or whatever it may be. Again, that's the marketing behind Rolex, right? That's the whole idea.
It's the genius behind a brand that has changed so little about their designs since inception, and look at it. Look how strong it is still. If that's not genius, I don't know what is.
And most people don't know that Rolex is actually a nonprofit organization.
That's right. So they elect to be treated as such. I don't know the technical details of it all.
Right.
I apparently they're one of the, if not the biggest real estate owner or landowner in Switzerland. I don't know if that's true. That's what I've heard. So they're like a ingenious organization.
They're one of the. Just the logo alone, you see a crown, you're like, oh, that's royalty, because that's the connotations that you get in your mind.
It's that word they use, cosmopolitan, is the right word. It'll always be the zeitgeist. That's the thing. No matter what era, no matter what is the trend or the hip hop thing or whatever, Rolex is always relevant. Always, always, always. So
No matter the decade.
no, you can go back, 100, 200 years, it's still relevant. Go forward 200 years, it'll still be relevant, I guarantee you. So for a brand to be that recognizable and that great is, to me, is like, you can't fathom it.
So, as somebody who's a founder of a watch company, I'm sure you pay attention to their marketing and how they conduct themselves in the watch market, and I'm sure you aspire to have that type of what do you call it? Aspiring to be on that path in regards to their marketing to get get eyes on your actual product.
So I pay attention to brands' marketing, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Do I pay attention to Rolex's marketing? Not so much. Okay. Only because how I see Havid Nagan is going to be a player in the industry is not so much related to how Rolex does things. What do I mean by that? One, volume. I have nowhere near the aspirations or, in reality, the demand to get to over 1 million watches in production a year. I don't want that. I have no interest in that. I want it to be a small, family-run sort of community where the collectors know one another. I know as much as I can the collectors that are collecting my watches, and sort of in the way that I was brought up on Journe. That was that's my context,
So having I guess how FP Journe has done business. That's kind of the path that you would like to see Havid Nagan go.
In a way. So I can never be them. I can never be him. I can never be the community that they are. Just because by virtue of what the brand is or what the watches are or what the guy represents. So just as a background, I spent 3 years there. It was my first foray into the watch world. I knew I wanted to be in it.
Right.
And luckily enough, my wife had bought me tickets to a Watch Time event in 2019 in downtown LA. And I ended up going, of course, with her. And it was like Disneyland. It was like, I'm like, oh my God, I heard so much about these brands, Journe included, and other brands as well, the Debitunes and the Grubel Forzis. I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do here? I didn't know which way to look. And I see Journe. I'm like, that's the first one I'm going to. So I dart towards it. And I ended up seeing and meeting the guy who I ended up replacing down the line, who was wearing the same exact watch that I would later end up wearing for 3 years, which was the Chronometsu Run in red gold with the Havana dial. So it was a very exotic watch.
We'll put it up here so you guys can check it out.
And I talked to him for a little. I look at the watch, I look at the movement, and I'm like, wow, I couldn't fathom seeing something so beautiful and so different, And Pierre Halimi was the gentleman that I ended up meeting, who was leading the table at that time.
Okay.
And he is still the general manager for the Americas. And I told him, look, Pierre, like, I want to be part of this. I don't care in what capacity. I don't care how much you pay me. I just want to get in. And I learned that mentality, or I guess that offering myself to the world from a man named Jean-Claude Biver.
Oh, wow.
Who most people are not going to know. If anybody listening to this, I don't even know if they would know.
I'm sure let them know who that man's a legendary man, by the way.
Sure. So this guy is probably one of the most iconic or legendary businessmen in the industry. So he's known for building Blancpain and Hublot, namely, and turned both of those companies around like 10x, if not more. So, and not a watchmaker. Like, he was not the technical guy. He was just a businessman and a ingenious marketer and brand builder. Mm-hmm. And so there was an interview I was watching, and he's like, get in. It doesn't matter in what regard. Just get in. If you really are passionate and want to work in it, don't try to go for $100,000, $150,000 salary. Just get in. Eventually, it's going to happen. So that's what I adopted. So Pierre at the time gave me his business card and said, look, the first thing is passion. You have that clearly. So be in touch. Eventually we'll find something. 2 months later, I had sent him a follow-up email saying, hey, Pierre, just checking in, if you have anything, let me know. And I remember the day I was at my former career working in real estate, and I was answering the emails there, and I was like, you know what, I remembered, I was like, let me send an email to Pierre. And he responds within 5 minutes. The guy is like on it. I've never seen a more machine-like businessman than Pierre Halimi. In some ways, I really aspire to be like him. And He responded within 5 minutes and said, actually, funny enough, Aaron, we have an opening in LA. I didn't even know there was an FP Journe in LA. Otherwise, I'd probably be there every damn day.
I didn't either until I saw it a few years ago.
Yeah,
Wait a minute, there's a Journe boutique.
Right. Sunset Plaza. And I was like, great. And he had CC'd Laurent, who was the brother of Francois Paul, and his, at the time, wife, Stephanie. And we ended up settling on a date. I went in. The first day I remember I went and talked to them. I didn't know how to read him. Like, it's the first time, I'm meeting a really French guy. Like, the epitome of what you would, like, if you think French person, this guy is it. Skinny, smoking cigarettes all the time, drinking wine.
And
like,
dressed very well.
And dressed impeccably. All the time. There's never been a time or a day that I've seen this guy where I'm like, hey, Laurent, like, you're kind of falling off, man, you know? He's really well dressed. And he's wearing these really nice glasses and just looking off into the distance, not paying attention to me. I'm sitting here. He's sitting to my left, his wife right in front of me. And she was great. She was asking me questions. Just, you know, it was a very nice conversation. Finished the interview. They said, okay, let's be in touch. I said, okay, great. So I think it was like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and I was doing everything in my power to not bother these people. Like, I don't want to lose it. Like, I might have a foot in, you know. Like, you don't want to ruin this. So they called me in again, and that was when they took me into the back room, the office, and they're like, "Look, we don't need help with sales. This is early 2019.
Okay.
And Journe had just started to like pick up, other than the Chronomet Blue, which is the hype piece. Things were starting to pick up for Journe. They're like, look, we're good with sales. Don't worry about anything. Funny enough, now I look back at it, good back then was 50, 60 watches in the safe at any given moment. Like, you can walk in and actually buy anything you wanted, more or less, right then and there. Now it's insanity. It's insanity. So it was more like, we need admin help and organizing the repairs and just being on the floor and helping me do sales.
Right.
Came in not knowing very much at all. You know, I didn't know the technical side of what a Journe was. I remember he took me into the safe one day and he's like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the meat of what you will be doing with me. I remember like holding it. I'm like, what? Like, this is
insane.
This is the best watchmaking there is in the world, you know, like, this is the pinnacle. And I'm like, how the fuck did I put myself here? You know, I still to this day ask myself that question, like, how the fuck did I get here? You know? So I remember second day, he were standing outside with collectors, and he tells me, I didn't go get me the automatic loon. I'm like, okay, I'll go get you the automatic loon. I come out with the Chronometsu Run. And he looks at me, he's like, this is not the watch I asked for. And I'm like, I felt my heart drop. I'm like, oh my God, like, this guy, he's French, man. Like, he's very serious, you know, in those moments. I'm
very
like,
forward.
Yeah. So he went and got it. Eventually, obviously, I learned all of it and knew how to recognize them and knew what the complications were and understood the logic behind how he's doing what he's doing, not understanding what he's doing, because very few understand how he's doing what he's doing. But I understood, okay, that makes sense. I now understand why he's using a constant force mechanism, why there are two barrels instead of one barrel for the mainsprings. So really learned about, okay, what makes a good watch a good watch.
Right.
And obviously I learned all of how to handle people, how to talk to people, especially at that caliber.
That level of clientele.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Funny enough, you over time you realize they're just normal people, man. Like, it's not. A lot of people will conflate wealth and richness with, oh, that guy must be an asshole, or that guy doesn't care about anybody else other than himself, or, you know, a lot of that. When in reality, it's not the case at all. They're very private people. They want to be friends. Like, they want people around them. It's just, they also have to be careful, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, they don't want to be taken advantage of. And also, you know what it is, man? You know, being a watch collector or a watch enthusiast, right? These are toys.
Right.
It's like a grown man's and woman's toy. These are not necessary. These are commodities, right?
So we moved past that. And that's I like that you brought up that point, because I think it's a very important point to note on, is the necessity era was when it first started.
Right.
You know, mechanical watches, timekeeping, and for example, Harrison with the table clocks and the marine chronometers and all these, you know, really highly technical creations for sake of accurate timekeeping. Why? Because like if you're leaving port and you're using time as a way of latitude and longitude, then 1 minute deviation or 2 minute deviation or 30-second deviation, whatever it is, you're gonna be off course, man. Like you might get lost at sea and die, you know. So there was a necessity for these things. Now people like Jorn their quest will always be accurate timekeeping, as accurate as mechanically can be, without a quartz movement inside. But we moved past that a long time ago. And if anything, the objective metric or the KPI of what makes a quartz watch or a mechanical watch, you know, which one's better, you know, the quartz watch is without question
100 times out of 100.
Without question, going to beat the mechanical watch 100%. At accuracy, just by virtue of friction alone. That's Francois Paul's, for example, his philosophies limit friction. And as is the case with everything, by the way, in technology, you know, if you want someone to adopt your app and start using your app more, the easier you make it for them to use, the more likely they are to use it. So we're past that. Like we lost that war a long time ago, you know, accuracy. So it's not so much that. And I think the market understands that now. So for example, the first thing, in my opinion, what I do at least, and a lot of what the collectors that are around me have admitted to, is, does it look good? That's the first. If it doesn't look good, what's attractive. The point?
You got to be attractive.
Good design, fit, ergonomics, and that was top of mind for me when I was designing my watch. Was I need to make this the most perfect fitting thing there is. For my wrist, by the way.
Dude, I wore it and it was light, but at the same time, it has a nice presence, but it's not too much.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's not overwhelming.
No, not at all. And I think it's something that everybody would enjoy wearing, and it's unique.
That was the thing, too, is also I wasn't, and I still am not, designing anything for anyone. I designed it for me. Like I was sitting in my parents' living room and I said, I'm going to design my own watch. Not for a commercial sake. It was just an idea of like, okay, what would my watch be? You know, if I hypothetically were to build my own watch, I drew it out. And
so what gave you the inspiration to go with this case style?
Well, a number of things. First and foremost, I wanted something different. I knew that it was not going to be round. Straight up.
This goes back to
the Frank Mueller. Yeah. That's what really sparked. Like that's what made my heart flutter was the Frank Mueller. So I knew it was not going to be round. So I said, okay. I always used to in high school. I always used to draw and paint geometric shapes, but I would also have organic shapes flowing into. I wish I brought a notebook. I would show you. So I always had that geometric thing
in the back of my mind.
Like anytime I drew something, there was a geometric flow to it. So I said, okay, let me lean into that. Now my time in real estate, I ended up working for a higher end agent in the West Side, in the Beverly Hills and Santa Monica, prime LA areas. The more I started showing these higher end clients homes, the more we showed them a lot of these modern Hollywood Hills, you know, Bird Streets, you know, you think of an LA Hollywood Hills home, white facades. Then I showed one day a house built by an architect named Paul McLean. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal design, phenomenal architecture. And when I first stepped in, it was like, okay, what I knew immediately, this guy took what is familiar in that it had white facades. It did resemble the same design, but it was like nuanced to the point where you're like, man, this guy's like the king of this modern real estate in LA. And it's not just LA, he does in Orange County or different areas.
Right.
But it was this beautiful thing. So I took that and I was like, okay, I'm not going to build something completely avant-garde, like, for example, Debutune or MB&F, you know, what Max Busser and all those guys.
These are wild watches.
Wild. Yeah. Like, to someone that isn't initiated, they'll be like, that's not a watch, you know, it's something else. So I started looking into more. Well, first of all, when I drew it out, the case shape was already this. More or less, it was that. It was bigger, that's for sure, because I don't really have the technical background to make things proportional or like clean lines. You know, it was just drawing very casually.
Right.
Really, in a watch context, what inspired me was the neo vintage of, let's say, the early 90s to the late 90s of, you know, like you said, Zenith, what they used to do with case design. Roger Dubuis, vintage Roger Dubuis, Frank Mueller, you know, and very nuanced cases, very different, just something that made you think about the case.
And it's unique.
It's unique. You looked at it and you're like, wow, like that, the case alone was something to talk about. And I really realized nobody was doing this, or if they were, it was at such a higher end where you're like, I'm not gonna buy a $300,000 watch, you know. Like, I want to be
Right.
able. I mean, hopefully, you know, by God's grace, hopefully
aspiring
both
to
of
it,
us
sure.
can. Right. So it was those. A lot of people look at it and be like, oh, Nautilus.
see it?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Let me just hold it up so at least you guys can see.
Yeah, so it's an important note should be made. This is my father's prototype that he purchased, and he's like, when the hell am I going to be able to take delivery of my own watch, you know? So
You guys should check out the actual movement inside. It has a display case,
Yep.
showcase, and so much unique little details inside of it, which make it. I understand why, and I like that it's stepped a little
yes.
bit.
Yeah, so that was part of what I envisioned for it. The presence to be on someone's wrist was not just, oh, look at that, the dial's beautiful.
Right.
I wanted to be like, man, that thing looks really comfortable. Oh man, what are the nuances on that case, like the flank of the case and the polish and the brush finishes, you know? So I didn't want it to be this one and done glance kind of thing, and you walk away like, oh, cool, that's a nice dial, you know?
You want somebody to take
I want it to be a
back.
conversation.
Right.
I want each and every single interaction with this watch to be a conversation. So that was really the inspiration for the case alone. The dial itself, I wanted to do something that connected the history of watchmaking. Personally, I love 18th, 19th century watchmaking. Like that's the golden era, in my opinion, of making that switch from necessity to design. And hey, like, you know, let's kind of embellish this thing a little bit. You know, that's where Breguet came in, and that guy was the greatest of all time. Abraham Louis Breguet, and the guy has invented and is responsible for, even to this day, I want to say 95% of the complications that we use.
Definitely.
And there are obviously many great watchmakers.
It's actually my uncle's favorite watch.
Is that right?
Breguet.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. You don't hear that from Armenians too often. That's not a seriously. That's
loves Breguet and Zenith too.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Which makes it a little bit more unique. And then going back to why I got into I'm a watch enthusiast is because of him mainly. My dad was never into like watches or anything, but my uncle I would always see something unique on his
It's great.
wrist. From Cartier to Breguet to Zenith, but I would never seen a Rolex on him. And I asked him like, why don't you have a Rolex? I was like, I don't fucking like Rolex. And that's just
It's my kind of guy. I want to talk to this guy. So funny enough, there was one of my very good collector friends, and he's an older gentleman. Not older, but he's older than me.
Right.
Most of them are. And he comes in one day, and he's a very t-shirt and shorts kind of guy. Very basic,
Casual.
very casual. He's a dad, he leans into that, I think. And he comes in with these cargo shorts one day, t-shirt. And I'm like, hey, you don't have a watch on today. He's like, oh, I've heard about the LA things. I don't really want to be wearing watches. Right. He's like, I'm not wearing anything, but I have watches. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I thought maybe he had a backpack in the car or something. I'm like, okay, bring them in. He's like, I have them. He takes out two Richard Mille 6702s, carbons, one Debutune, I think it was a blacked out Debutune, I don't know what it was, and then an Elegant from Journe. So I'm like, you're walking around with like 500 grand in watches on you? He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't have one of those watch boxes or any of that stuff. So he's like, it's just funny, like, you're this very basic looking guy, nobody would think unassuming, and nobody would think this guy has two Richard Milles on him and a Debutune and a Journe. Like, it's just,
which is great.
And
though.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Those are the conversations I want to be part of, because one, you connect with people easier. It's not oh, where'd you get your Rolex from? Oh, great. That's the end of the conversation. I don't need to talk to you about your love for Rolex. it's more of the nuance. Like, why did you collect what you collect, and what made you say yes to that watch?
Right.
Especially when you know the price levels of some of these independent brands, you're like, you know the price, and you're like, you're all in, man. Like, there is no going back.
60,
you know, this
80, 100.
Well, a lot of them.
Richard Mille is like 250 to 100 to $1 million.
I don't even know at this point.
This point, yeah.
It's ridiculous. So when you see someone, you come across someone that's spending $100,000, $150,000 or more on an independent brand that more or less is not known by anyone.
Like 1%.
They've committed to, I might lose all of my money on this, you know? That's a real commitment.
But I like it.
But there's substance, man. There's a way to connect with someone and learn about them past the watches. Because now you're interested. Because they're thinking more, in one way or another, exactly how you're thinking. So I'm glad to say that's by far the best benefit from my time at Journe was connecting with these people. It's the creme de la creme of the collecting community, at least in LA or some of the states that they flew in from. So I'm super lucky to have met them, and a lot of them have supported me in the launch, and I'm happy to say that it's not just them, it's strangers and people that have emailed in and saw some of the journalistic outlets talk about me and the brand, and it's kind of led people to me, so to speak. So
I've seen the watch everywhere. First time I saw it, I know because Madi, which is your relative, she's like, "Oh, my cousin has a watch brand." I'm like, and since you like watches, he's like, let me show you the brand. I'm like, holy shit, what is this? Because I've never seen it before. And then I saw your watch because I went on. I'm a YouTuber like crazy.
Sure.
So I love YouTube. Watch YouTube.
As do I.
It's a deep rabbit hole of all types of videos, from anything from a Casio all the way up to an AP, all the way up to whatever it may be. And then I saw it, and I saw it on Tim Masso.
Yeah.
He's a legend himself.
Yeah. That's my boy. He's I've never met anyone like him. I've only met him once, and that was at Watch Time in 2019, where I showed him the blue 3D printed mold of the case that you see here. And I remember his response was, "This is going to be special." And immediately I was like, Tim Masso saying that? Like, and again, I'm coming in very entry. Like, I don't know anyone in the industry. I don't know names. I don't know journalists. I don't know anybody. It's just, I knew this guy was one of the guys to show my idea to. So I showed it to him. He's like, "This is gonna be special. I love the stepped architecture, blah, blah." He dismantled it. Like, he went through every single component.
Because he's a big fan of engineering, and he loves.
Well, the guy is a encyclopedia of watch and car knowledge.
Dude.
It's unreal, his recall and the way his memory works. I've never met anyone like him. Period. So that initial interaction.
So you just sent, after you had a prototype, you sent it into him just for him to actually see.
So this exact watch I sent over to him because he said, like, send it over, let me check it out. And I had reached out to him, of course. I had asked him, like, hey man, like, would you do kind of like a review? It would mean a lot. And I told him, be honest, like, tear it apart. I don't care. Like, first of all, I believe in the product. I know if it's good, how good, which is what led me to price it at the price I did. So I knew, objectively speaking, there's nothing you can say that's going to mark it down. It really comes down to the subjective of what you see. And I have no way whatsoever, other than how I present it to the world,
right?
Which are the factual presentation of the watch. From that point on, it's hands off for me. I have no interest in trying to persuade you into liking it, because one, that's going to lead me to a very unstable base of collectors, and that's not good. I want concrete. I want titanium bars in that concrete, right? So I want it to be built on very substantial, strong, fundamental collector base, and from that point on, it's just building it slowly, day by day. Just
and
doing
then one
what I
day,
need to do.
a regular consumer be like, "Wow, what is that?" And I'm into it.
A part of me says, yes, that would be great. And the part of me says, I don't want that. One, if I get to that point, that means it's a whole organization. It's sort of like an enterprise.
Right.
I don't know if I want that.
You want it to be boutique.
I
as
want it to
possible?
be boutique. I want to fly out and meet you. I want to have dinner with you and explain it to you face to face. Not to say there's nothing wrong with the retail presence of a brand. It's amazing. People from all over the world can come and see the watch at a certain place. I just don't think what I want aligns with that. And I'm not saying there won't ever be, let's say, one location in West LA or wherever in the world for it to exist. But for now, I want it to be small. If it gets to the peak of it, 600, 700 collectors throughout the world that love and support what I'm doing, they see the vision and they understand it. I'm happy, man. Like that's my dream come true. And I'm already living my dream. Don't get me wrong, but that's more of like, I did it. I made it. It's not a money thing. It has nothing to do with money. It's more
passion.
of waking up and knowing I can't believe I'm doing what I want to be doing. Like, it's unreal to me. Since I left, it was 4 months ago. April 1st was the first day I was off on my own. And I woke up that day. I was like, what the hell do I do? Yeah, aligned with that. I was like, what the hell do I do now? And it's just like, I'm going to repeat what I've been doing. I'm not going to change much. Talk to people as much as I can. Care about what this is, and connect with fellow enthusiasts. And that's what I've been doing. I haven't changed much. It's just, I'm doing all of it now. It's just me. My wife helps with like Excel models and, just building that stuff. But, sales, eventually when, the deliveries come in for the first batch, I'm going to be the one, literally just me sitting there and putting the straps on the watches and the buckles and packaging them up and sending them off to their homes. I love that. Like I that's the nitty gritty, man. I like to be on the ground floor of things, because that's where you see all the action.
Well, it's the ground floor of your own company.
Right.
So that's even more special.
It is. It is. It's I am fully and utterly responsible for what direction this thing goes in. So if it starts to go off base, then I have to course correct. And if that's not happening, obviously, but it's too early for that to happen. But the vision is clear to me. I know where I want to, what watches I want to release consecutively in the next 10 to 13 years. I've designed as many watches as that. Hopefully, I can release a watch once a year, hopefully, if production times, align. And that's if I release 1 to 2 watches a year successively, that I'm good. Like, that is my dream come true, and I can die happy at the end of it, so
well, I know that you've, from just hearing you, man, I can hear your passion for your brand and just watchmaking in general, which is not too many people are into horology, or anything of that nature. It's like, it's just a watch, bro. Relax.
And now that you see a lot of the popularity rise and the hype is drawing in everybody from every corner of life, to I should have a nice watch now. I should buy an AP. I should buy this. I should, that you have to be careful as a brand as to who you are letting on the ship. And I don't mean that in a biased kind of way. What I mean is, for example, like this Royal Oak. You can buy this $25,000. You can sell it for 40, 50 grand now.
Especially the white face.
Well, I mean, all of them are. It's a Royal Oak at the end of the day.
But you got it at retail.
I got it at retail.
Yeah. And I also saw you on TikTok, and randomly came up on my For You page, and then boom, there you were wearing a nice double-breasted suit out in New York City.
So that was a spontaneous thing. To be completely honest, I did not know I was going to be part of that. I'm with a friend who helped me organize the dinners that I put together with the collectors at the time. His name is Christian, and he's a really, really, really nice guy, genuine human being. And he said, hey, this guy's meeting with us. He's going to do this TikTok thing he had a Gronfeld on, a Meteorite dial Gronfeld, beautiful watch. And he's like, hey, he just asks you like who you are. Hey, I saw you in the street. You were wearing this watch. It's like what you saw.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, sure, and at the time I wasn't wearing my own watch because the strap, the prototype had broken. I'm like, shit, man, like, poor me, I have to wear the Royal Oak now, So I had the Royal Oak on, and he comes up to me and says, hey, man, like, I just did it for Christian. Do you want me to do it for you? I'm like, oh, screw it, let's do it. Why not? I've never done this before. So he does it. the next day, in the TikTok, I shout out my boy Daniel, who is my rep at South Coast Plaza AP. And shout out to Daniel.
Thanks again, Daniel.
He's a really, really, really genuine human being. Just a really nice guy. And the next day he texts me. He's like, dude, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, my email, I had 65 emails come in. And not the phone has been nonstop for the entire day. I'm like, oh, I did a TikTok where I shouted you out. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you. He's like, no, it's totally fine. Like
thank you.
He's like, no, thank you. Like I want to help people, but so I was like, listen, I don't know these people. I don't vouch for them just because I don't know them. So just be careful. Like don't just willy nilly. And not that he needs me to tell him that, right. But I told him like, look, I don't know who's coming your way. So just FYI, it got up to like 170,000 views and like endless comments and all. I'm like, this TikTok, man, like this is crazy. Cause I'm on Instagram. Oh, I tried to do the TikTok thing here and there, but I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I have no idea how to work it. I can't believe I'm saying it. I'm 30 years old and I'm out of the know, out of touch with the TikTok. So I just refer to it as the TikTok. So that's how out of touch I am. And
which makes sense because it's a watch TikTok. Get it?
Yeah. So it went crazy, and he did one for the collector dinner, or he did like a walkthrough of his day. Uh-huh. And at the end of it, he showed some of the the dinner that we were at. Non-stop emails came in for my watch. I was like, damn, man, like this has never happened on Instagram. Like this is madness. So you kind of realize, man, maybe Instagram is at like the death of it, and maybe TikTok is the new thing. And I'm like, shit, man, like now I have to relearn this thing. And
well, if you ever need help with it, feel free to hit
are you on it? You're good? Okay,
yeah,
we'll talk.
I'll help you out.
We'll talk.
I'm trying to build my TikTok right now too. I'm telling you, well, like how you're saying Instagram is dead. It is dead. Yeah. It's dead. That's why now they're trying to move it over to Reels.
Right.
Just try to.
I don't know if I like it. I don't know if that's the older side of me or.
I think it's what you're so used to in regards to posting images and all that stuff. Now you have to go into the more of the video side of it, which it might be foreign to you. Not so much, but you know what I mean. Now you have to spend more time.
To be completely honest, I hate the wrist roll. Like I hate, oh my god, especially when they go like that, and it's so slow, and you're like,
it has a jingle.
Come on, man! And I'm like, just show us the watch, And
we know what it is.
I realize it's the best way to really show the entirety of a watch. I get it on someone's wrist, especially. So
there's a delay,
but it's also just like it's very like I don't vibe with it, so to speak. So at the end of the day, it's not an overly bad thing. It's just not my preference.
So I've the name Havid Nagan. For what is that in reference to? For everybody else who doesn't know what that means.
So if you're an Armenian and you don't recognize it, then shame on you. It's a play on the word Havid Nagan. At the time when I was trying to label it or title it, I was like, man, okay, I can't give it or I can't put my name on it because I wanted to respect the tradition of watchmaking, which is if you're not the guy building the watch in its entirety, your name doesn't belong on the watch.
Right.
So Francois Paul believes that. Breguet believed that. A number of all of the watchmakers, the great watchmakers, believe that. So even when Breguet, for example, when his son and his family started to help him build the pocket watches, it didn't read just Breguet anymore. It read Breguet et Fil. So that's family. He's giving the credit to who is helping him build. So I said, okay, can't be my name. It's not right. I said, okay, I don't want to build like this fashion thing. I don't want it to be this like here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. I want it to be substantial. I want it to
have history on its own.
Well, history of its own and like to mean something. Even if it dies out when I die out, I want people to look back and be like, hey, he was doing something honorable.
Right.
And really honorable, not me trying to market my way through it. And that's why like each HN, like 00, for example, is the guilloche. That's what these watches will be a play on. They will always be centered around the art of guilloche. So I said, okay, I want to build something lasting. I always thought about legacy, about building something that's going to last after you're gone. And I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm Armenian. Maybe we connected to the Armenian thing in a way. And I I said, eternity. Okay, eternity. And I was like, okay, what's Armenian word? Havid Nagan. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a badass name. And initially it was going to be Havid Nagan.
Yeah. Like Alang and Sona.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. What ended up happening, I was like, wait a minute, like, why don't I just leave the out, like Havid Nagan? That sounds cool. That sounds badass. I was like, you know what? Rolls off the tongue. I'm like, it's nowhere near as hard as saying Audemars Piguet or Vacheron Constantin, and
I've heard somebody call it Audemars Piguet.
Oh yeah. They butcher it, especially on some rap songs where you're like, really, you didn't grammar check that, like Piguet. Yeah. So that was how it ended up becoming that. So it was also this balance I wanted to have in terms of not alienating non-Armenians. I don't want it to just be an Armenian thing. It's not meant for that. I'm Armenian, yes, and I'm proud to be Armenian.
Of course.
But that doesn't mean other people can't enjoy this. So I ended up putting the flower logo, or the symbol of hope in what is hope in my opinion, or forward progress in Armenia. So that's the logo. I made it my own. It is trademarked. It is my own thing.
No robbery, guys.
I don't think anyone's gonna be robbing this. And if they do, it'll be a compliment to me.
Definitely.
So there's like subtle hints of what my background is, and if you know, and if you don't, happy to tell people. That's where it came from.
That's wonderful, man.
Yeah.
Well, you have a whole slew of watches in front of you, and you said your first watch is here on this table.
Yes.
And it is a Panerai.
So Panerai Radiomir 754 on a custom strap by Aren Bespoke Combat Straps on Instagram. He's a great guy. Operates out of Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Beautiful. And really, really talented guy, and he has a great team. So this was a gift from my best friend in Kuwait. And this was it. This was what was the starting point of what I thought about design and what I want it to be.
I see a little inspiration.
In a way, yeah, there is. And I'm a big proponent of nothing is unique. I think, who was it? Was it Picasso or someone? I don't know who it was, but someone said nothing is unique. So everything comes from something. So that's another point I wanted to talk about, was even in technology, even in finance or entrepreneurship or whatever you want to call it, building something new or avant-garde, a lot of people look for visionaries, or they're trying to call themselves visionaries when in reality,
that vision was already done.
It's not even that. It's what I'm doing is not visionary. I have a vision,
right?
If you want to call it me a visionary for that, sure, why not? But what most everything is an iteration on what has been done,
right?
And for example, the neo vintage cushion cases that there used to be. Even Patek used to do this type of stuff. So it comes from something. It always does. And even Francois Paul, for example, like there's obvious Breguet in his desigin.
Oh, for sure.
And he says, this is my inspiration. George Daniels, Breguet, Harrison, the Marine chronometers, all that stuff. So there's even the greatest geniuses in this industry are inspired by something or someone. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think that visionary thing is sort of played out. Or misguided at very best. So that's how I approach what I do. What drove me towards the Panerai was, again, different case design. When my wife and I were close to getting married, we said, okay, we have this budget. We're going to set a budget for wedding gifts to one another.
Right. We did the same thing.
Right. I think most everyone does that, within the respective budget that you can afford,
within
of course.
Reason.
Of course.
For the person.
Of course. You're going into a wedding. You're going to be off on your own. Don't break the house before you even have the house, right? So even to me, to this day, I felt guilty in that moment where I made my wife pay, I think it was $36.50 we paid for this watch. To me, that was
a lot,
man. Like, it was so unfathomable for me to spend that amount of money on not a car, not a mortgage, not something that's going to move me forward in some way.
Right.
So I remember like when we were going home, in my mind, I'm like, shit, man, what did I do? Like, we just spent $3,600 on this thing. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I was
Or you
like,
felt bad at
my
the
heart was palpitating, but I was like, what did I do? You know? But I still love it. I wore it on my wedding. I had it on a black strap, of course, because I wear a black tuxedo, and it means everything to me. It's what started it all, you know. And I started being comfortable with wearing something like this on my wrist, without feeling. Eventually, to this day, I still kind of feel guilty with all of these things, to be honest, and putting my wife through all the boring conversations about watches, and this guy's doing this technical thing, and you know,
Sounds very familiar.
what it turned into, you know. So that's what started it. I was a very good boy in that I was, you know, allocating funds from personal funds. My wife and I, I'm kind of jumping around here, but to kind of give it context, when I was developing the business before I had left Journe, of course, I was working on the watch well before I even got into the industry. I sat down with my wife and we talked about, okay, I have this passion. You know, it's there for me. I'm going to give this thing my all. It's either we do this, you come along with me on the ride. I don't know where it's going to go. It is a risk.
Right.
But if it goes to 100, great. We live a life of great fortune, and not in a financial sense. I mean, like, we get to live life on our terms. We don't feel like, and what I mean is
to answer anybody else.
Right. Eventually, she would come on board and be a part of it. Or we fail. It's not life threatening. You know, life goes on. We you know, it goes to shit. And eventually I find another job and eventually just work my way through. I'm 30 years old, man. Like, it's not the end of the world.
No, not at all.
Or we commit to like real estate and stocks and just work up the corporate ladder, you know, end up hating our lives because we worked for some asshole, you know, whatever it is.
Who got the bonus and you didn't get the bonus. Et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And, you know, even past that, we had a serious conversation of, you know, I was making good money at Journe. I had no reason to complain at Journe other than my own personal, you know, wanting to do this. So, but the thing was, there's this technology venture capitalist, Chamath, who talks about being trapped by money. And I took that to heart, where I was like, man, like, that's something I don't want to happen to me either. I don't, just because it's a 6-figure salary with a bonus, you know, whatever, it's great, you know.
Right.
My parents come from nothing, you know, and they're like, you did it, Aren. Like, you made it, you know, like, not made it, but you're on your way to making it. You're going to take this risk. Are you crazy? You know, these thoughts ran through my mind and still to this day run through my mind at times. I really wanted to do something for myself. I wanted to be emancipated, you know, from what is,
to be freed.
Yeah, what is someone else's thing, and all of my effort going into building that, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to put that same level of effort, if not more effort, into my own thing. And if it works, then the whole thing works, and my life takes on this new meaning and new form, and I get to live it on my own terms. Or I can just work my way up through here, and eventually maybe I work my way into a leadership role or go to another watch company or whatever. And it's not to say that's a bad life either. You know, it's a great life. But I wanted to do this. I wanted to not look back 30 years from now with, you know, 3 kids or 2 kids or whatever.
Like, I should have,
what if? You know, what if? So, you know, it's going well so far. You know, it was the right decision as far as now is concerned. I'm not worried about anything. Just started getting word and movement on the development of the second one. So that's being worked on.
Second batch?
The second watch.
Second watch.
I don't know what I'm going to do yet as far as a second batch for the OO. I'm playing around with a number of ideas. I don't know what I want to do yet. So that's also the fun of it. You know, like, I decide what I'm going to do here, you know, and I listen to collectors, I listen to the market, I listen to what people are, hey, you should do this, hey, you should try that, hey, what about this complication, GMT and dual time zone and blah, blah, blah.
GMT would be sick.
I know, and you can use the, you know, the
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, trust me, I know.
I'm sure you know more than
but
I
it's
do.
also like, how about if I don't want to do that, you know? It's I want to steer this ship. And I have some very exciting ideas. I have some very cool ways of presenting complications that are not as often used in the industry nowadays. Retrograde stuff, namely, that's like one of my favorite complications is something retrograding.
Oh, okay.
So let's say it's a 0 to 60 seconds counter. Once it hits 60, it goes back, flies back.
Dude, I love those.
So that applies to calendar mechanisms. It could apply to anything really. So I want to incorporate that stuff. I'm working with a lot of really good and very technical manufacturers in Switzerland. So I'm lucky to have been introduced to the people that I was introduced to, and really, like, even the Schwartz Etienne partnership was just me emailing him. Like, people were like, "How'd you get connected?" I'm like, "Dude, I just emailed them. Like, go on their website and email them."
Technology.
Yeah. So a lot of people think this is magic. It's not, man. It's just working. Like, if you have an idea, you want to follow through. Look, my wife went from, for example, I'll give you something like, she's recently taken up gardening. My wife was never a gardener. She's not trying to be a nationally renowned gardener. She loves it. It makes her happy. It's a hobby. She started naming each and every single plant in the house now. And I'm like, where the hell did you learn? Like, she's just, and you have to keep this one here and humid, and this one likes drier air. And I'm like, what? Like, but the thing is, you're driven towards something. The alternative of you ignoring what is, making your ear flicker or your heart flicker is you living a life that is not on your terms. What's the point? It's a waste of life. It's a waste of your own being. You're here for what, 90 years? 95 years, if you're lucky.
If that.
Compared to, let's say, the length of the universe, it's irrelevant. What really matters is your existence in that 90 years, how you feel about it. We're not taking anything with us. We're not taking anyone with us. I forgot who it was. You come here alone, you go out alone.
That's right.
I think it was a Buddhist monk, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
Born alone, you die alone.
Yes, yeah. So I don't mean to be so grim about life in a way, and there's gonna be people around me. I know it. Like, I love my people, they love me, and there's gonna, God forbid, when the time comes. But the thing is, you are going through that doorway by yourself. So I want to never look back on that bed of shit. I left that on the table. I should have tried. I should have done something. I don't want there to be I should have. I did. It either worked out or it didn't work out.
It panned out or it did not pan out.
Yeah. So that's another thing I want to, I guess, bring to the forefront of conversation amongst millennials or Gen Zers, whatever you want to call them. Just because Instagram tells you how to live life, just because your parents tell you how to live life, or what the society has built up, what success is,
right?
Financial success, getting an MBA, going to this Harvard, or Ivy League school. Sure, yes, all of those things have substantial, meaning.
Of course.
In life, higher education is a great thing, especially if you're going to go into, being a doctor or something like that. Obviously, you better be educated.
See, what you're saying to me right now, bro, everything that you just said from what your passion is, and in regards to not having any regrets later on in life. I've been saying this and I've been preaching this for such a long time. When I was younger, my mom and my father would tell me, he's like, you know what, this business behind you is not fair. It's not going to be fair, but it's like, why don't you go do something much more safer? And then just like how you said, it's like, I don't want to be 90 years old and then think back, be like, I had the opportunity to do it and I gave up. And I don't want to ever have that type of regret in my life.
Well, it's also, and look, if I were to have done this without the context of being in the industry before I launched my brand,
sure,
it's dead on arrival. What I did was the harder way of doing it. I sucked it up. I was making okay money in real estate. I wasn't going to become rich, or maybe eventually I would become rich. I don't know. But I knew I didn't want to commit my life to it. So I said, look, like there is no loss here, man. Like what? You suffer for 3-4 months of, oh man, it didn't work out. Now I have to go find a job. No. So what? Like life is short, but it's also long in that you have time to like do what you want to do.
Experience
a lot of things. Yes. So don't be closed off to risky moves. That's everyone I know. all of the rich guys, the wealthy guys, the guys that are buying $250,000 watches and have these amazing cars and homes and blah, blah, blah. All risk on, all of them. And that's another thing that I never want to lose is I am a risk on guy. And I don't mean stupid risk, don't be dumb.
Calculated risk.
Yes, exactly. But try your hand. Look, I'm Armenian. I come from a family that is mid-level. It's not rich, not poor. We never suffered. I never had to worry about a roof over my head, thank God.
But we have the mentality of working hard.
That's the Middle Eastern thing.
Yeah.
Like generally speaking, is like, hey, get your ass out there. Let's build something. Also, most Armenians, at least in my circle, in America, I mean, not in the Yerevan or
right.
That's a different story.
Yep.
We come from a safety net. Like if we fall, someone's there to pick us up. The reality of the majority of other people out there is they don't have that. Like they have to be very structured and calculated and robotic in their projection of life. We, or me at least, and some of my friends around, we can take that risk. It was my father-in-law and father who told me when I had this idea of leaving real estate and going to the watch industry. I was like, look, we're about to get married. We're going to be off on our own for the first time. Mortgage, car, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's an independent brand. Like, I don't know what is going to happen to this independent brand that this guy's running out of Geneva. Like, I don't know anything about this. I was supposed to be this kid from Duarte, real estate. I went in and that's what an Armenian kid does. If he doesn't have a degree in something specific, it's
real estate.
Get real estate,
or be just an entrepreneur.
Or whatever.
A street entrepreneur.
Right. And it was them that were like, you're stupid if you don't do this. Like, you obviously have the passion for this. Go try. And it was the best decision of my life, other than marrying my wife, of course.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Just so she doesn't kill me.
Yeah.
It was honestly the moment in my life that I felt a new breath, man. Like I felt like, okay, I can totally flex within this structure, as opposed to being like, kind of like on, I'm doing this, I'm in real estate. Why? I don't know. There's good money in there.
If I sold something, I'm going to make money.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I realized that thing about money, that obsession with money. And I was also guilty of it. When I first got into real estate, it was like, I'm going to make $150,000 my first year. I'm going to go into and just take over, be like those $1 million listing people, when in reality, it's a slap to the face. It's really fucking hard to make it work. Like anything else, of course.
Very humbling experience. I'm sure.
Very, very, very.
Yeah.
So anyone that tries to go into real estate thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun, like
I'm
this,
just gonna flip a
this is
house.
the easy way of doing things. Like, no, it really isn't.
Because you got to build a network there too.
Yeah, and that's again, instead of me just launching a brand willy nilly out of nowhere. Hey, this is my design. Here, buy it. You know nothing. Like there is no context behind who is this guy. So that's what I meant was taking the long route. And sacrificing something that I knew for something that I had no idea about. Right. And I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So I'm glad to say it worked out in my favor. A lot of times it doesn't work out. So I'm not ignorant to the fact that I'm speaking from the pulpit of it working out. I've also had it not work out. In real estate, I was this close to quitting real estate before I found the transition into the watch world because I was so close to making these $50 million transactions happen, $20 million transactions happen, where I'm like, I'm going to go to Mykonos and I'm just going to hang out, for the rest of the year. It didn't work out, and your expectations are shot and it's depressing. So I was just thinking, if I'm going to be depressed, if I'm going to go through this anxiety, if I'm going to go through all this stress, why not it be towards me building my own thing?
Your own stress.
Yeah. So I'm glad to say I go to sleep fairly well.
Late nights?
I mean, I like early mornings. I prefer early mornings.
That's a bigger flex, mind you.
By the way, I'm not forcing myself to wake up early. I just wake up early. So does my wife. It was just, that's how we're wired. I am very time structured in that I know what I have to do for the day. I know what I can do for the day, the things that are like not really have to do it, but it would be nice to. And I just structure my time like very freely, in all honesty. Like there is no, okay, this is this for this, for this, for this, for this, even though my personal habits are very robotic. Eating essentially the same thing every day in the mornings, you know, having the same coffee, having the same, I sit at the same place every morning. I go to the gym at the same time. I drive the same. Oh, I am very much so. But when it comes to the creative side of things, I am totally off the rails.
Yeah.
And I think that's necessary in all reality to really put out what is my own expression into the world, as opposed to something that's derivative. I noticed in the beginning when I was designing the complications for the future watches, I had this idea for this GMT. And to this day, I still haven't figured out how I'm going to create my GMT watch. And it was becoming more derivative and more iterative. And I looked at it and I was like, shit, man, like I'm forcing this. So I just got up and walked away and I threw away the paper. And I haven't thought about it since. That's how I approach the design process. If it's not coming naturally, then it's not going to come.
You just scrap it.
I scrap it because it's not what my brain is wired towards right now. So I also believe in like listening to yourself and, listening to your brain.
Intuition.
Yeah, your intuition and just kind of going with the flow. Like we were talking about how I met my wife. Everything was natural. I view life sort of in the same light. When I made the transition from real estate into watches, it was very natural. The friction came later on when the nuances of a personality was coming out with someone that I worked with. I won't name, I don't like to name, all that stuff, but just not a very good work environment. And I was this close to leaving Jorn at the time. I had the dream job and I was this close to leaving because of how bad the interactions were day to day. And then I ended up talking to Laurent, my former boss. It was Christmas time, I think, and we were standing outside in front of the boutique. And he's like, "What's wrong with you? You're kind of down today." And I told him, it's like, "Why didn't you come to me?" I was like, "I can't come to you, man. Like, it's a family member. Like, you're a family member. I can't. Like, how am I supposed to come and tell you that?"
Right.
He's like, "I don't care." He's like, "You should have come and talked." That's why Jorn is so important to me. Is that man, Laurent Jorn, who at the end of my life, I'll remember that man. Very important individual in my life. Given that he kind of structured and guided me,
almost
and
like a mentor.
And 100% a mentor. That's for sure. He's not overly technically driven. He knows everything about what Francois Ball's creations are and the remontoirs and all that stuff. But damn, is he charismatic. Damn, does he make you fall in love with him. Even though with some people he has this like dark French humor and he offends people. He's not politically correct whatsoever.
I respect it.
I look for people like that now. I don't want people that mold themselves to the environment. Fluff. I want people that stand out,
you don't
break
want the
out.
fluff. You don't want fluffy people.
I don't want people that are just living. I want people that are existing in life. Their personalities, their characters of themselves. And I don't mean in some like offensive way or rude way. I mean like be yourself,
your
man.
True self. Let
it come out. Yeah. And if you don't vibe, then you don't vibe.
Right.
If the frequencies aren't, I believe in that too. I'm not an overly like hippie kind of guy, but I do believe in those frequencies. I really believe in that. Like there's a reason when you meet someone and initially like, I don't know about this guy, man. Like
you get that feeling.
There's that feeling that listen to your gut. I really believe in the gut.
I agree with you too.
Yeah. So that man was responsible for really kind of sparking the interest of the technical side of, okay, there's a remontoire here. Why is it there? I was like, I don't know why it's there. Then you start reading. And then you're like, okay, what's the point of a mainspring?
Right.
You learn about the mainspring. Okay, what's the gear train doing? Okay, we got it. Then there's the remontoire. Oh, I get it. Energy's coming, it's buffering, it's releasing. So things just start to kind of learn themselves in your brain. Like you wake up and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I get it now.
Making sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like anything else, Right. And I'm not saying I understand it on a watchmaking level where, no, those teeth are wrong. Like you have to grind those teeth down a little bit.
The design and what's
the logic of the layout.
Yeah.
So, why is there an axle in your car? and the tires need something to rotate on. So the same thing applies to watches, right? Like it's built more or less in the same way.
Right.
Energy storage, gas tank, the gear train, transmission, right? So exhaust escapement, it's all logical. It's really, really fascinating stuff, which is why I want other people and younger people to get into it, is because this is really fascinating.
Very fascinating.
It's not just design and, you know, all that. I think it was Nick Manusos, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name, who is the lead of HSNY, which is Horological Society of New York in New York. And there was a recent movie that was put out for watches, the history of watchmaking. And he says this one thing, you know, yes, they're expensive. Yes, they're archaic forms of technology. You know, I get it. But it's a lesson in engineering, 100%. In history, art, design. It's so many things in one.
And sometimes sentiment too.
And yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because, I mean, each one of them has a sentimental value to you at this point, right?
They do. And I can tell you what each one means to me. Like the Panerai was my wife's gift to me, it's so important to me. And
it's priceless.
It's really priceless. It's priceless. I don't care if it stops working. I don't care if...
But you'll still wear it.
I don't... Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I don't care if there is... It's an iconic design, man. And that's another philosophy thing that... my collecting philosophy, as it were, you know, if you want to call it that. I like collecting icons, you know, the Royal Oak, the Panerai, you know, Radiomir.
Casio Oak.
Well, yeah. So that's a.
It's like you want to steal it.
You know,
Go
funny
for
enough, I had no interest in any of this stuff, the G-Shocks or any of that stuff. I appreciate them, but it wasn't my thing.
But
one of our newer at the time coworkers, Kenny. He showed me this picture of this Casio. I'm like, wait, that's not a Royal Oak. He's like, yeah, it's a G-Shock. They're modifying it with the Royal Oak case. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then I showed Laurent, and he's like, hey man, let's buy a couple. You know, like it'll just be fun in the pool. You know, that kind of thing. So he bought the steel one. I bought this rose gold bracelet one. And it's this cool thing. I haven't worn it for a very long time. Just
it's
because
cool. I mean, from a distance.
I got stopped so many times just walking around and being on. Yeah, check it out. $250 all in. You know, it's amazing. And a lot of people like will mistake it for the real thing. Here, hold on, the real thing next to it. Like it's not overly different. You know, like
the difference between these two things is this is about $30,000.
Well, $25,000. Okay. $25,000.
I was trying to flex it. I was trying to flex it out for you, but I mean. It's like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger from Twins, right?
That's a good analogy. I like that.
Beautiful stuff, man.
So yeah, the Royal Oak was my first really high end. Where I'm like,
is that a Grail watch for you?
It is.
Was it on your list?
Well, I mean, okay, look, so. It's a Grail watch. So there's levels.
So let me explain what a Grail watch is. A Grail watch is a watch that you strive to own one day, hopefully.
Aspire, yeah.
Aspire to have it as long as you're financially free enough to buy it.
Right. Well, so now it's not so much. Well, it is still. It's not only to be financially ready. Can you even get the damn thing?
That's also true.
And that's where this thing was so important to me. Was I always knew I wanted Royal Oak. I told myself years ago I will one day have a Royal Oak because it's iconic. It saved the industry, in my opinion. So for people that don't know the history of the Royal Oak, briefly put, in the early 70s, the watch industry was at a inflection point between the quartz, what we call the quartz crisis. That's right. People wanted to wear things that were more accurate, easier, cheaper. There was no point in being mechanically driven. The geniuses at Audemars Piguet, I'm sorry, hired
Peugeot.
Yeah, I can't believe I messed that up. At Audemars Piguet, hired a gentleman called Gerald Genta.
That's right.
Who is responsible for the Nautilus, the Royal Oak, for a number of different, if I'm not mistaken, he was also involved in Bulgari de Cartier. One day it took him to design this thing, which is already like, holy shit, like this guy is on another level. Like that's insanity. And he said, you know what? Here is this. It's steel. It's masculine. It is not made of precious metal. It's steel. It's very it's a common metal, so to speak. And by the way, we're going to price it for more than a precious metal piece. And it was like, what? Like, what are you talking
gonna
about?
buy that, right?
But the precedent had been set, whether or not people realized it back then, the precedent had been set. This is not about logic anymore. This is purely emotional. So when you're buying these things, it's emotion. It's not, it overrides any sort of logic to buy a $25,000, $30,000, $250,000 watch.
100%.
It's logically fallible to do these things. It's stupid.
That's good advice, but
It's art.
100%.
You're buying art. You're buying a brand's mark.
it's like if you wanted to buy a Warhol or you wanted to buy any of these pieces
right,
here.
right, right. And yours is art.
Yeah.
You know, we had a painting in the boutique at the time. Shane Gufog, if I'm not mistaken, is the artist. Beautiful things.
Right.
To me, they did nothing. I looked at it and I wasn't drawn towards it. I didn't want to own it. It was nice to look at. I look at these things and I'm like, oh God, I need to have this thing, man. Like I need it in my life.
I feel the same thing, man. When I walk into like any watch, I was in Vegas last
recently,
week.
yeah.
Dude, I was there and I just walked. I'm like, I feel like a magnetic pull. You know, when you walk in there, you're like, these designs are insane.
Even the ones you don't want, you're like, I just want to be around them.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like I feel much. I feel healthier being here.
Yes,
for some strange
you do.
reason.
You do feel better.
Yeah.
You really like. I don't know if it's the chemicals in your brain like that are releasing the
dopamine?
the dopamine, the serotonin, and just like I need to be in here. You know.
Yeah.
Every time I walk into an AP boutique or a Panerai boutique or Richard Mille or whatever, I'm walking into the world of these brands.
100%.
And you are wholly consumed by it, which is a beautiful thing because, in my opinion, in the last 3 years, 2 years, whatever you want to call it, obviously we're all divided, and it's only getting worse, it seems.
Clearly.
I'm a huge proponent of anything that brings people together, and for better or worse, you know, whatever the price tags might be for these things. If someone sees a Royal Oak on your wrist that knows what a Royal Oak is, or a Debutune or Richard Mille or Havid Nagan, whatever, they look and be like, oh, you get it. Like, hold on, let's talk. Let's meet one another. And you started a relationship.
Right.
Whether or not it's a big one or a small one or...
It's a starting point to maybe a friendship that
Right.
can blossom into something, or just, you know, a casual hello and a goodbye, but at the same time you kind of interacted, a passion with one
Right.
another.
My best friend, I met in the watch world
Wow.
3 years ago.
Wow.
He's my best friend. He's my brother. Like that, I will die with that guy. Like that's my guy. It was this thing that brought us together, and he's helped me in the Middle East, for example, where we're going to eventually name a partnership that I've recently signed on. We're working on that. He was the one that sort of put me in the place to meet those people. That's huge. And it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him. And he's kind of like my consigliere. Like I have these ideas, and I'm like, hey, like, not that I give a shit what you think. We're very like
The voice of reason.
we're very like this is how we talk, you know, like oh fuck you, you know, that kind of thing.
yeah, definitely.
The way brothers do, you know.
Of course.
I run these ideas by him and like, hey, I'm thinking this. What do you think? You know, I listen to him. So
Right.
It's not to say I'm like totally closed off to everyone else. It's just I trust him wholeheartedly, and I know his heart is in the good place. And again, man, I'm lucky to. It was this industry that gave me these people. That's what I'm most thankful for. That's why I say, if you go into the passion, whatever is calling you, you're enthusiastic about. Chances are you're gonna benefit net, financially, relationship-wise, socially. You're going to move up the ladder in life, so to speak, whatever dynamic that is, whatever aspect that is, you only stand to gain. And I don't mean like, you know, sometimes the tables can turn against you.
Of course. But that's anything.
That's anything, man. Like you can have a really shitty day at your 9-to-5 job. You can get fired. You can, the company can go under, whatever.
Right.
Anything could happen. Why not anything happening with your own parameters that you've set? So that's what my mentality is. more or less is kind of like, I took the risk. It's still a risk. I have no idea if this is going to work.
I think I have a good feeling that it will work.
I hope so. It's going in the right direction, but at the same time, I'm always like, what if this doesn't happen? What if this doesn't work out? What if this guy's late? What if this?
That's because you care.
Well, I care.
It's in your heart already. That's
Right,
why.
right. It is, and it's also I think running your own ship. It's
difficult.
you're so like alert to every single thing that can go wrong. Some days it's really tough, man. Like to get this thing in line.
Yep.
And that's something I want. Maybe we close it off on that. I don't know.
Sure, go for it.
Is to I don't know how you're doing on time. By the way, Levin, like whatever.
We're great. This is good for 10 hours. For real. Both of them.
Great.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this, if you're gonna totally be on your own, and when you have a house and a car, responsibilities, real life responsibilities, you have to really take care of your mental brain, man. Like mental side. I'm sorry.
It's stressful.
When you need to walk away, walk away. When you need to go to the gym, go to the gym. When you need to have a drink, and I'm not saying resort to substance abuse, but I'm just saying like when you need to relax. Don't force it. That mentality, I hate that mentality of no, keep going. 9 to 5 during the day, and like Gary V is that.
Oh, dude, I was gonna
keep going. I'm like, dude, you're gonna burn out, man. No one is built like that.
That's why Gary V's 40-something years old. He looks like he's 50 plus.
Well, it's also, I've seen people, one of my good friends lost his father to work. He was non-stop working. I can almost guarantee you that's the reason why his heart stopped. And he was young.
Stress.
He was young.
50s
when
probably.
you're non-stop consumed by it, you're not letting your brain disconnect, which is important in my opinion.
Right.
So I wake up early in the mornings. I work on Havid Nagan for quite some time. And look, in all reality, I don't stop working on it. So when an email comes in now, I'll respond to the email. When it comes in at 10 and I'm awake, I'll respond to it. At the same time, when I'm at the gym, there is nothing else. I'm at the gym.
I agree
I'm
with you.
disconnected. When I'm reading, I'm reading. When I'm having a drink with my friends, I'm having a drink with my friends.
And nothing else matters.
And nothing else matters because it helps me.
balance.
I'm going to be better because of it. So you're only taking away from yourself operating at 100. Like, for example, here's another way of, I guess, an analogy of it. They say your Tesla is not supposed to be charged to 100%.
97.
Right, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
It's okay to operate within that. It's okay to dedicate your day to whatever you're working on 70%. Because you also have your physical health, your mental health, your partner, your home,
life.
your car. There's things you need to take care of. Like, that's part of being an adult.
Right.
If you have people that do that for you, great. If you're a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever, you have maids, fine, sure. But
you got to get shit done.
You got to dishwash. You got to do your laundry. You have to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be that conversation more often than not of, what are you doing to build a business? Yes. What are the steps you're taking? But also, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Because at this point in Havid Nagan's existence, a lot of people, let's say, for example, that I don't know personally or I don't have long-standing relationships with, are betting on me after a conversation with me. The watch is great. They might like the watch and the price is okay. They accept it. But they're really supporting me and saying, okay, leap of faith, which is what an Italian collector of mine, Mario, he's a phenomenal gentleman and just Italian, bella, that whole thing. He's got that personality and he leans into that very much so. And I remember I took out the watch out of the case initially and I showed it to him. His first words were, what did he say? Que bella, que bella. It was just what beauty,
So beautiful.
And he looked at it, he's like, price. I told him price. He's like, what about this? What about that? Delivery timelines, blah, blah, blah. How about servicing? The whole, what encompasses owning in Havid Nagan.
Right.
He's like, he looked at me and says, why not? Leap of faith. Which is what a lot of people are doing right now. In any startup or any watch company that's up and coming now.
Anything that you want
You're
to do.
looking at the guy and saying, okay, I believe in you. Now people are much more accepting and willing to take the jump, so to speak, in independent watch brands coming up. So
and there's also the micro brands too, like Baltic.
Yeah, and doing phenomenal things, by the way. the people kind of, a lot of the higher end collectors that I know are like, that's it's a Salida or a Japanese movement inside. And I'm like, dude, it's $500, it's $1,000. Like, beat it.
But the design is
and
amazing.
it's so cool. It fits so well. There is another, what was the brand's name? Anordain. Anordain. I don't know if you've heard of it. When you thought about Grand Faux enamel dials, which is what Patek Philippe is known for, so you're looking at a $50,000-$60,000 watch to get Grand Faux enamel. Now there's a company, Anordain, $3,000, $4,000, I forgot what it was, doing actual Grand Faux enamel dials. You can have a part of that. So the same thing that happened in technology, or happens in technology, where something is new and expensive at first, now has become commoditized.
Obtainable.
Like obtainable, exactly. Yeah, commoditized is not the right word. It's much more of a diverse ecosystem.
I think it's fair though.
It's fair. It's fair. I don't hold myself away from that standard of I'm coming in. I have a good product. I believe in my product. I know what I'm doing. I can have each and every single thing checked off, aces. Everything's good. At the end of the day, the collectors, the market at large, are the ones that say, yes, Havid Nagan is going to exist. Not me, not my decision. I mean, my decision is obviously influenced.
But no matter how much you try to push it.
At the end of the day, if someone subjectively is like, no, not enough people are saying yes, then that's the death of the company, You can hold on as long as you can hold on. But if it's not working, it's not working. Eventually, my wife and I, we were trying to start this app back in the day, before I got into watches. Okay. It was going to be like this app for everything. Chores, we called it. Okay. Essentially TaskRabbit before TaskRabbit, with nowhere near the knowledge or the technical or like the money that needed to build something. Idea. I had the idea. I was trying to draw it up. I was trying to come up with like this MVP, blah, blah, blah. I was like, how the hell are we going to make this work? Like, I have no idea what I'm trying to do here. I just knew that I wanted to build something my own. So I always had that. And then what you realize is you have this draw or energy that you're trying to put towards something. Right. But a lot of times what people think is, I'm going to shotgun it. I'm going to try my hand at so many different things and see what works. And sure, that's great when you're young and, sure, throwing darts at a board, right? You have to eventually find the thing that makes you tick. And like my wife, for example, says she hasn't found it yet. She doesn't know what she's really passionate about. And I tell her, maybe it's on your part to do more soul searching. Maybe you got to try your hand at more things. Maybe go into another job or research another hobby. Understandable. Try to find something. There has to be something. Don't tell me there isn't something. Your thing is photography, obviously, and you do fucking amazing work, and you have your own thing with it, your style with it. I really believe in that. Like, lean into the thing that makes you, or what you are known for, or what your brand is known for. So I will never try to be someone else. I will never try to present myself in a way that I'm not naturally. Right. I will never try to build something that's not my own expression. Of course, there's influence. Of course,
bro, this is all influence.
Influence with everything. 80s, 90s. It's very evident.
And just like how there's the designers and the watchmakers of yesterday.
Yes, yeah.
And these are the I get inspired by all the other photographers that I've always looked up to.
Right.
So that's kind of, I take them and then I make.
And you do
own.
it in your own way.
Yes.
There is nothing wrong with that.
It's like was it copying someone? It's very flattering if you copy someone.
Right. Yeah. Well, what was it? Good thieves. I'm going to mess it up. I don't even know.
But you know what I'm.
I know what you're trying to say.
Sorry, guys. We were trying to get all philosophical. It didn't pan out. But it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise.
I appreciate it. And where can they find Havid Nagan?
HavidNagan.com or the Instagram at Havid Nagan.
The TikTok soon.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
And where can they find you on social media or
at Aren Bazerkanian? The easiest way would probably be go to website, email through, and I'll happily.
You guys should go in there and inquire about Havid Nagan and all the great stuff that he's doing. This is episode 12 of Lost in Hollywood. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. See you later. Goodbye.
Thank you, man.